Our Earth is a paradise for all species that live on it, including each and every one of us. This means we need to do everything in our power to preserve our resources and protect our wildlife. When we continually create toxins and other unnatural substances that harm our environment, we are not only hindering the air we breathe, but our bodies, the food we eat, and we are creating a less abundant universe for the future generations to come. Taking care of what we have is becoming a higher and higher priority with every year that passes. We have abused our resources to the point where conserving as much as possible is extremely necessary. Our animals have been facing the stress of our mistakes, and the technological solutions to the problems we constitute require energy, which turns into a waste product resulting in climate change. Everything we do has a consequence, including the creation of PCBs. Polychlorinated biphenyls, also known as PCBs, belong to a broad family of man-made organic chemicals known as chlorinated hydrocarbon. They have a range of toxicity and varying consistency from thin, light-colored liquids to yellow or black, waxy solids. Because they are non-flammable, they maintain chemical stability, have a high boiling point, and are used for its insulating electrical properties. PCBs are found in hundreds of industrial and commercial applications, including electrical heat transfer and hydraulic equipment. This means they are found in paints, plastics, rubber products, pigments, dyes, carbonless paper, coolants, and more. PCBs were at one time actually required by the fire code because of their role in preventing fires and explosions. PCBs are highly desirable because of their thermal and chemical resistance. In result, they do not readily break down when exposed to heat or chemical treatment. However, because of these traits, they are extremely harmful to our environment. Since they do not break down easily, they remain in our water, soil, and air for long periods of time. PCBs can be carried for very long distances and have been found in snow and seawaters far away from where they were originally released. PCBs are unfortunately found all over the world. This is how it works. Worms consume the organic matter contaminated by the PCBs. Small fish then eat the worms. Small fish are eaten by larger fish, which are then eaten by larger predators such as whales, birds, and even human beings. Over time, as the cycle continues, the PCBs build up in the fatty tissues of the larger animals that have been consuming the contaminated food. The accumulation of a chemical in the animals at the top of the food chain is known as bioaccumulation. Since PCBs are toxic, the consequences become obvious. An animal very popular to the PCB threat is the polar bear. Chemicals used in heavy machinery have been causing abnormalities, which can eventually lead to their extinction. Their birth rates are already falling due to high levels of PCBs in the bear's blood. The toxins have been damaging their hormonal system, causing infertility and sexual deformities. Although PCBs originated in the US and Canada, there were hotspots of the toxins found in the Norwegian Arctic, believed to be carried there by the air and sea currents of Europe and Asia. This is a global problem. Polar bear cubs are in the greatest danger because they receive high levels through their mother's breast milk. A major concern with the polar bears pertains to the reproductive system. Breeding occurs in the spring, but the development of the embryo is halted at a multi-cell stage called the blastocyst. In the autumn, the blastocyst implants and continues development. There are suggestions that the species with such delayed implantation are more vulnerable to the effects of pollution through hormone disruption. Further, because female polar bears are fasting during gestation, their pollution loads increase because they are using their fat stores for energy, and the pollution is retained in their blubber. Cubs are born in an extremely immature state and weigh only 1.5 pounds. Because the cubs are nursed on fat-rich milk, the cubs are exposed to very high pollution loads from their mother. The polar bears ingest the contamination through their diet containing seals and small fish. Seals being the worst substance solely because they have thick fat deposits where the PCBs are stored. The average polar bear's fat tissues contain about 21 parts per million of the PCBs, compared to the average human with 0.25 to 5.58 parts per million. The most threatened species to PCBs, however, are the killer whales, also known as orcas. They are the most contaminated creatures in the world because of the intake of Chinook salmon, who are heavily dosed with the toxins. Unfortunately, salmon make up of roughly 92% of the killer whale's diet, and nearly 70% is the Chinook. They eat about 500 pounds of salmon each day. Because orcas are high in the food chain, their level of contaminated concentrations is magnified. This contaminant makes whales more vulnerable to infectious disease, impair reproduction, and impede normal growth and development. Females tend to have a lower concentration of the chemicals because mothers have the ability to offload them to their young, both in the womb and through their breast milk. This means at a developmentally fragile time, young orcas get a hefty dose of the poisons. Males, however, have no way of getting rid of the chemicals, so they continue to accumulate the poisons over the course of their lives. They have roughly 150 parts per million of the PCBs, the highest concentration recorded out of every animal in the world. This is dangerous because it can cause early death in the male population, giving the females less of a chance to reproduce. Whales can live for 80 to 90 years, causing massive buildup of the toxins. PCBs are not only harmful to the whales and polar bears, but humans also. They have been known to cause cancer as well as a variety of other adverse health effects on the immune system, reproductive system, nervous system, and endocrine system. Levels of PCBs in the immune system result in the decrease in size of the thymus gland and red blood cells. It may also make us more vulnerable to contracting pneumonia and other viral infections. PC levels can also decrease birth weight in humans, live birth rates, and conception rates. In males, PCBs have been known to reduce sperm count. Humans with levels of PCB exposure also showed persistent and significant deficit in neurological development, including visual recognition, short-term memory, and learning. Thyroid hormone levels have also been found to have significant changes with the exposure to PCBs. The worst thing about these toxins is they have been banned since the 1970s and will most likely remain in our environment until about 2030. PCBs were developed by the company Monsanto in 1929 and only remained around until 1979 before becoming completely banned. Since then, however, contamination levels have decreased by 250% and will continue to decrease over time. While there are still extraordinarily contaminated species, there are people working to control the toxins. If we do not continue to treat the infected areas, however, PCBs have the potential to completely kill most of the orca population, along with the polar bears, who are both already on our endangered species list. Things are getting better and will advance until PCBs have completely diminished.